I'm gonna be really honest. I don't like Title Fight. I love Title Fight. Ned, Jamie, Shane, and Ben have this uncanny ability to invoke feelings of nostalgia, euphoria, happiness, and sadness all at once in a way that no other band can. They're able to achieve all of this while simultaneously never sticking to the same formula, let alone genre, from release to release. Formed in the year 2003, when the boys were literally teenagers, Title Fight has been wreaking havoc on the music world ever since. Over the years, they've released a slew of titles, each one having its own distinct flavor. Across their catalog of music, they've incorporated elements of punk, pop punk, emo, hardcore, post-hardcore, shoegaze, alternative rock, grunge, you name it. You couldn't put these guys in a box even if you wanted to. Although the band has remained relatively inactive over the past few years and their future seems to be up in the air at best, one thing remains crystal clear. Title Fight is an extremely special band. Since their formation, Title Fight has managed to implement the perfect blend of novelty, authenticity, and versatility, which in turn has developed them a dedicated, unquenchable fan base, almost cult-like. Dictionary.com defines the word novelty as the state of being new or unique. Typically when that word enters my mind, I picture things like sticky hands or whoopee cushions, which makes sense because those are classified as novelty toys, but the more I sit and think about it, novelty is the perfect word to describe Title Fight as a band. New and unique in every sense. They do things in such a way that I haven't seen before. It feels like they took the rule book and burned it. And I'm not even talking about their music right now. I mean in terms of the way they market themselves, their overall look, and feel. It's the combination of very minor details and very simple yet rarely executed upon ideas that leave a lasting impression. For instance, my first encounter with a physical Title Fight release was when I bought Floral Green on CD in fall of 2012. The first thing I noticed was the shape of the packaging. Typically when you buy either a CD or a vinyl record, the packaging is a perfect square. But when I bought Floral Green, the packaging was taller than it was wide. I actually didn't notice it later until I got home and tried to fit it in with my row of CDs, and it stuck out like a sore thumb. And that's how Title Fight is as a band, but in the greatest way imaginable. It's small things like that which make you go, wow, these guys have an attention to detail that's just completely on another level. The amount of care that they put into everything they do is absurd. Even their merchandise has its own unique vibe to it. At Warped Tour 2012, their merch tent really stood out to me because I noticed they were selling backpacks of all things. Not those garbage drawstring things you see at a lot of festivals, but real, extremely nice looking, high quality backpacks that strongly resembled vintage Tommy Hilfiger, LL Bean, or Nautica stuff. They're not afraid to be unapologetically themselves with their merchandise and are also willing to take big risks, just for the sake of doing something cool and expressing themselves to the fullest extent. While some bands understandably prioritize profit and print a one-color graphic on a white Gildan tee, Ned and the boys would rather do something like sell a VHS tape. To this day, I still can't believe they did that, and I think that was the intended effect of doing something like that, so it'll stick with you and you'll remember it. On top of VHS tapes, they've also sold things like disposable cameras featuring their album art and these really neat high-quality pennants that were exclusive to Floral Green pre-order bundles, not to mention the many zines they've released throughout their career. All of this just adds to the undeniable 90s nostalgia feel that surrounds them. Even their regular merch items are notable. All members have incredible taste in art/clothing that leads to some of the most breathtaking original pieces of band merchandise I've ever seen. It's also different from each other, but strangely cohesive. It's almost like high-quality 90s apparel with a punk twist. It's also worth pointing out how different and heavy their album artwork is. For being the type of band that they are and playing to the type of kids that they do, I'd expect their album covers to look something like this, or maybe this. But once again, Title Fight chose to stray from the path. A majority of their releases feature artwork from artist John Garrett Slaby, a man particularly skilled in the medium of paint. All of their albums have a very similar look to them, almost making it feel like there's an ongoing narrative from album to album. And while that most likely isn't the case and it's just a fun thought to toy with in your mind, the fact that animals and nature are recurring themes throughout gives that idea a small amount of merit. I'm not exactly sure what it is about John Slaby's artwork, but it hits incredibly hard. It's difficult for me to put my finger on what it is, but over time I've come to the conclusion that his work makes me think about things that I usually wouldn't want to or will purposely avoid. The Last Thing You Forget album cover reminds me how small and insignificant I truly am in the grand scheme of things, and how much is happening around me and will continue to take place whether I'm here or not. He's able to achieve this feeling through perspective. It's almost hard to notice at first, but there's so much depth and so many layers to this piece. We see the trees, a campfire, then the animals, the tents, a train. Behind the train are the mountains, then the night sky with a plane flying overhead. Sometimes people say that they're just a cog in a system, but this piece makes me feel even less important than that. The pure and utter chaos on Shed forces me to ponder how out of control and animalistic the world could become at any given moment. It's a wonder that we don't rip each other limb from limb, because we all have the capability to do that, yet we don't. Is it because we're all such great people, or have we just not been pushed to the edge yet? Will there become a point when we revert to our primal instincts and leave civilization in a state of ruin as pictured on Shed? Maybe, and I honestly don't want to think about it. When I was doing research for this video, I stumbled upon a comment that perfectly articulates how I feel about Title Fight regarding their authenticity as a group and as individuals. It reads, "The only band that acts real. They play whatever they want, they don't act fake, and no one hates on them." You know how certain bands or band members will put on a persona in an attempt to be perceived in the way they desire by their fans and peers? Well, Title Fight does the opposite of this. By not acting fake, they're afforded a mass amount of respect by their fans as well as other bands. They're absolutely revered in the hardcore scene, maybe even legends at this point. And I don't claim to have a wide range of knowledge regarding that scene of music, but I do know for a fact that they don't tolerate or accept any BS. You're either the real deal or you're not, and hardcore kids will sniff out the fakes and posers in minutes. Title Fight being championed in hardcore speaks volumes about who they are as people and as a unit. There's not a single interview that I've seen where any member of Title Fight acts like they're some big important musician in a big rock band. They just act like normal people and always give lots of respect to whoever is interviewing them, which makes people want to support them even harder. Ned Russin just looks like your average straight edge hardcore kid, and you never know he's in a famous band unless you straight up asked him. All of the members are so unassuming, and it just feels like you're listening to your friends talk when you hear them in an interview. It's really fascinating to hear Ned talk about punk and hardcore, as he has this insanely deep and vast knowledge of anything relating to those genres. I'm sure that's the case with other members, but there's this one particular interview / record shopping trip where he spouts off a ridiculous amount of facts and random little bits relating to punk and hardcore. The passion and excitement in his voice is so compelling. I could listen to him talk for hours.
Yeah, I mean, this is real cool. This Blast sticker, this Warzone sticker. Blast is a old California band. They were on Wishing Well for a minute, but they're cool. They just put like a new record out on Southern Lord.
Title Fight's authenticity isn't just present in their demeanor and behavior, but their lyrics as well. Ned and Jamie have a way of writing that strikes hard emotionally without being melodramatic and over the top, and feel like they're speaking from the gut. You know, when people say less is more, that's exactly how Title Fight lyrics are. They tend to be short, sometimes almost sparse, but through that, they're actually able to say more, and leave you room to think about what is being said. In Title Fight's case, to add would only take away. In title track Shed, Ned Russin addresses people getting into hardcore and then leaving it as if it was a trend. You're cold like the blood that runs through your veins. I've been told there's a black spot next to your name you can't seem to erase. Shed your skin, change your face, but you're all the same, you're all the same. It's so incredibly challenging to write lyrics that are this heartfelt, genuine, and minimal, but Ned and Jamie do it flawlessly and consistently. By being so true to themselves and not putting on an act for anybody, they're able to whittle down to the core of what they're feeling and trying to communicate, which creates some of the most honest, poignant pieces of music. A lot of times when a band puts out a record that works and sells well, they'll often attempt to recapture the magic of the previous album on their next project, almost like making a part 2 of their last album that sold well. Title Fight rejects this approach on all fronts. Time and time again, they've demonstrated themselves as a band of versatility, not complacency. One of the most intriguing elements about Title Fight is their progression as a band. They're unafraid to reinvent themselves with each piece of music they release, because they truly are doing this for themselves and not for us. They don't care what we think, not in a rude or mean way. They just simply make the music they wish to make and invite others on the ride if they want to join. It's rare for a band to start off in the way Title Fight did and end up where they are today. Many groups that start off with a more pop-punk influenced sound don't typically have aspirations of expanding out of that genre, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but Title Fight had different plans in mind. Immediately from The Last Thing You Forget to Shed, we already see the boys beginning to make changes to their sound. The Last Thing You Forget has a good mix mix of youth-infused pop punk and hardcore, but by the time Shed rolls around, we already see them slowing things down and begin working on expanding their sound. While Shed does have a variety of upbeat bangers to choose from, like 27 and Coxton Yard, tracks like Crescent-Shaped Depression, Safe in Your Skin, and Where Am I let us know that they're playing around a little bit and give us hints at what's to come in the future. Their 2012 effort Floral Green perfectly builds on the foundation they constructed on Shed, featuring a grungy, melodic hardcore, emo-tinged sound throughout. They do a great job of balancing the fast, hard-hitting tracks like Leaf and Secret Society with the slower, more layered, expansive tracks like Lefty and In Between. The standout song on this record would have to be Head in the Ceiling Fan. Coming out of nowhere and slowing the album down to half or maybe even quarter speed, this is the furthest removed we've heard Title Fight from their sound thus far, but it works so well. Head in the Ceiling Fan points us in the direction that Title Fight wants to go as a band. It's a fine mix of 90s emo paired with shoegaze that sends you into a dreamlike state as Jamie Rhoden repeats, Head in the Ceiling Fan goes rolling and missing like bullets slamming into deerskin. From Floral Green, we arrive at their most recent effort, Hyperview, released in 2015. Here we see them fully embrace the shoegaze, emo-tinged sound found on Head in the Ceiling Fan. This is perhaps their most controversial release, as some were unhappy with the complete and total change in sound. Many said that this album really lacked in energy and that a lot of tracks sounded the same. To this day, Hyperview still isn't my favorite Title Fight album, and I would have liked to see them expand on the layered, atmospheric punk vibe they had on Spring Songs, the release between Floral Green and Hyperview. I have a ton of respect for the record and Title Fight for fearlessly making such a big jump into the unknown and switching up the formula yet again. They refused to stagnate, and because of this, they're rewarded with hungry supporters always waiting for what's to come. Even though no one knows what the future of this band will hold, the love that people have for them hasn't waned in the slightest. And that right there tells you all you need to know about what they've built. It's something bigger than them and bigger than us. It's a feeling and an emotion that no band will ever be able to replicate. And even though we may not get another album from this wonderful group, the affection and dedication we feel towards their work will always be present. Thank you for watching.